The army of the Quraysh was heading towards Medina from Mecca. Several days before the departure of this army, it became known to Muhammad that the Quraysh had gathered their army in Mecca. As this army was on its way to Medina, the Messenger of God continuously received information about its speed, movements, and distance from Medina. Hazrat Abbas informed Muhammad about the army's movement from Mecca. The Quraysh's army had set up camp near Mount Uhud, a few miles away from Medina, in a lush green area with water. Khalid was unaware that 2 Muslim spies had seen the entire strength of this army, and the Messenger of God kept tracking them. On March 21st, 625, Muhammad ordered his army to march and encamped at the foot of a mountain called Sheikhain. Muhammad was accompanied by 1,000 infantry mujahideen, 100 of whom wore helmets. Only 2 horses were available to the mujahideen, one of which belonged to Muhammad. At this point, the first dangerous manifestation of hypocrisy occurred, which was synonymous with treachery. Some people of Medina had accepted Islam without truly becoming Muslims at heart, whom the Messenger of God had referred to as hypocrites. It was very difficult to ascertain whether someone was a true Muslim or a hypocrite. When the Mujahideen began to move towards Mount Uhud from Medina, an influential man named Abdullah ibn Abi became entangled in this debate. It was argued with the messenger that since the Quraysh's army was 3 times stronger, it would be detrimental to go out of Medina to confront them. Muhammad sought the opinion of other leaders of the Mujahideen, and the majority said that it would be better to fight outside the city. You were also inclined towards Abdullah ibn Abi's opinion, but you accepted the majority's decision and gave the order to move out. Abdullah ibn Abi refused to go outside the city, delaying the pursuit, and 300 men from the army fell behind. It was then discovered that all of them were hypocrites, and Abdullah was their leader. Now, compared to 3,000, only 700 remained. The Messenger of Allah did not lose heart and took only 700 men with him to the location of the Mujahideen at the foothills of Mount Uhud. Khalid had observed the arrangement of the Muslims while standing on a high hill and informed his leader Abu Sufyan of their positions. The Prophet lined up the Mujahideen in a line about 1,000 yards long. There was a valley behind them. One side of the Mujahideen was a mountain, but there was nothing on the other side. To keep this side strong, the messenger placed 50 archers on a nearby hill. Abdullah ibn Jubair was the commander of these archers. "Understand your responsibility, Abdullah." Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, said, "Keep watching your rear. The enemy can maneuver behind us, which is a threat to us. The enemy has more cavalry. They can attack us from the side of the horsemen. Keep your arrows focused on the horsemen. I'm not afraid of foot soldiers." Almost all contemporary historians, including Ibn Hisham and Waqidi, especially emphasize the importance of this statement. Almost all historians write that Muhammad said to Abdullah bin Jubair in clear words, "Our back, defensive position, will only be safe if you are vigilant and prepared. If you show even a little negligence, we will suffer a great and humiliating defeat. Remember, Abdullah, if you see the enemy fleeing and we are gaining victory, do not leave this place. If you see the enemy overpowering us, if you see our dead bodies laying on the ground and vultures penetrating our bodies apart, or if you see the enemy's pressure increasing and you need to come to our aid, do not leave this place. This mountain height should not be left in the enemy's possession. This height is yours, and from here, you will be the rulers of the entire region as far as your archers' arrows can reach." Khalid observed the Muslims' formation and told Abu Sufyan that the Muslims would not fight in an open field. Abu Sufyan was proud of his large army and wanted to fight in an open field. Using his numerical superiority, to crush the Muslims. Khalid's father had trained him in military tactics from childhood, including how to attack the enemy from the side or rear, and how to divide his troops and control them. He had been taught by his father to observe the enemy's formation and plan accordingly. When Abu Sufyan brought his army to face the Muslims, Khalid saw that the Muslims were capable of showing great military skills. Abu Sufyan sent his cavalry to attack the Muslims' flanks. Khalid was on one side and Ikramah on the other, each with 100 horsemen. The commander of the horsemen was Amr bin al-As. Abu Sufyan had placed 100 archers in front of the infantry. The flag of the Quraysh was held by Talha bin Abu Talha. In those days, the flag was considered as important as the heart, and if it fell, the army's morale would break. The beginning of the second major clash between the Muslims of Medina and the Quraysh of Mecca was near. Just like at Badr, the Muslims were once again greatly outnumbered by the Quraysh. At Badr, it was 313 against 1,000, while at Uhud, it was 700 men with 50 archers and 2 cavalry men versus 3,000 trained and equipped warriors. There was a significant disparity in weaponry, including swords, spears, armor, horses, camels, and arrows. Similar to Badr, the Muslims were neither as well equipped nor as numerous as the Quraysh. The initial setback for the Muslims, which lowered the morale of their army, was the betrayal of Abdullah ibn Ubay, whom the Prophet labeled a hypocrite, munafiq in Arabic. While these signs were worrying, the Muslims were no strangers to adversity. Going from the remarkable victory at Badr to the crushing defeat to Rakana, the wrestler at Arena, the Muslims had gained confidence and composure. However, Prophet Muhammad's instructions for the Muslims to be vigilant hinted that the situation was unfavorable for them. The Quraysh began the battle by sending a man named Abu Amir Fasiq forward. He was a native resident of Medina and was from the tribe of As, an influential and largest tribe of Medina. Like Abdullah ibn Abi, whom Prophet Muhammad had declared hypocrite, Abu Amir was also titled as Fasiq, meaning transgressor, by Muhammad. He was also an arch-enemy of Muhammad. Since the arrival of Prophet Muhammad and his followers into Medina, he had been seeking opportunity to expel Muhammad and his followers from the city. Therefore, he was trying to take full advantage of this battle. Before battle, he had sworn to expel Muhammad and his companions once for all. Although the Jews of Medina had apparently made a treaty of friendship and obedience with the Muslims, they were secretly working against them. Abu Amir was their secret agent. When the Muslims came forward to fight the Quraysh in the battlefield, many of his tribe, As, had accepted Islam and were fighting against the Quraysh. Abu Amir came forward and addressed the Muslims in a loud voice. "The brave and adventurous youth of my As tribe, I want to speak with you, and it is urgent and important." When the Muslims of the As tribe heard the voice, began to focus their attention to Abu Amir. After a little pause, he said again loudly, "Do you know who am I? Listen to my words carefully." He hadn't finished his letter when the voice of a fighter from the ranks of the Muslims roared, "Oh, you sinful villain, we've spat on your name." Khalid remembered that moment. A group of Muslims from the As tribe started pelting stones at Abu Amir and his slave. Historians write that the people throwing stones were Abu Amir's own relatives who belonged to As tribe. Abu Amir found himself caught in the barrage of stones from his own tribesmen. Abu Amir fell on the ground, and each of his slaves began to flee, leaving him alone. Jews in Medina were waiting for news of the battle. The beautiful Jewish girl, who had married Abu Amir on the condition that he play a crucial role in expelling the Muslims from Medina, was eagerly awaiting news of his success. She didn't yet know that her Muslim lover was being assaulted by the Muslims. Before the incident involving assault of Abu Amir, the women who had gone with the Quraysh army were standing among the troops, singing in a sultry voice, using words that evoked memories of the Quraysh killed in Badr in such a way that it made listeners shudder and their hair stand on end. Some of these women had also delivered fiery speeches. When the order to retreat came, Hind, the wife of Abu Sufyan, mounted a horse and began to sing a song. Her voice was loud and passionate. Historians did not record the complete lyrics of this song, but they wrote that it was lewd and mentioned illicit relationships between men and women. The verses that have come down in history are like this. The name mentioned in the verses is Abd al-Dar, who belonged to the Banu Abd al-Dar, a branch of the Banu Umayyah, a prestigious clan of the Quraysh tribe. They were singing this song in a beautiful voice. Abd al-Dar's sons, guardians of our homes, we are the daughters of the night, free to roam. In the silence, our steps dance between the trees. In this movement, there's joy, there's a gentle breeze. If you charge at our foes with courage, unbound, we'll embrace you with love. Our hearts will surround. But if you retreat, no, we won't follow near. For our love's not for cowards, it's only for the sincere. After that, Abu Amir, the sinner, was attacked by the warriors of Islam, and immediately after that, the Quraysh started shooting arrows at the Muslims. In response, the Muslims shot arrows back. Khalid, with his cavalry, advanced swiftly to attack the flank of the Muslim army, unaware that archers were hidden on the heights. His riders were galloping recklessly. The path was narrow, and the riders had to maneuver back and forth. Khalid had brought his horse to this side, thinking strategically, according to his father's teachings, that he would instill great confidence in the Muslims and make them retreat. And if they didn't fight together, they would be crushed under the Quraysh's horses. But Khalid's riders were still some distance away from the Muslims when arrows from above prevented his next riders from advancing or retreating. One by one, riders fell after being hit by several arrows, and those horses hit by arrows saved Khalid's rider from a catastrophe. The riders behind turned their horses around and retreated. Meanwhile, the Quraysh women, at the beat of drums and tambourines, began to sing the same song that Hind had sung alone. Absolutely, here it is, formatted like song lyrics. Abd al-Dar's sons, guardians of our homes, we are the daughters of the night, free to roam. In the silence, our steps dance between the trees. In this movement, there's joy, there's a gentle breeze. If you charge at our foes with courage, unbound, we'll embrace you with love. Our hearts will surround. But if you retreat, no, we won't follow near. For our love's not for cowards, it's only for the sincere. Historian Waqidi writes that according to the prevailing practice of Arab warriors at that time, each warrior's fighting phase came. First, Talha bin Abi Talha, holding the Quraysh banner, came forward and challenged the Mujahideen of Islam to send someone forward for combat. "Oh, enemies of my religion, here comes Ali," he shouted like a gust of wind. "I'm coming for your match." Talha, holding his tribe's flag aloft, came flying with his sword waving, but before his attack could strike, he was swiftly passed by. He barely had time to gather himself when the sword of Hazrat Ali struck him with such force that first his flag fell, then he himself collapsed. A man from the Quraysh rushed forward, lifted the fallen flag, and retreated. Another man from his family stepped forward. "I am bound to avenge," he said. He came charging forward. "Ali, see the cut of my sword." Hazrat Ali stepped forward silently to face him. They both locked eyes, circled each other, clashed their swords and shields against each other, and then everyone saw blood dripping from Ali's sword, and his opponent collapsed on the ground, trembling. Then, numerous Quraysh men, one after another, rushed forward, but they died in the face of the Muslims' attack. Abu Sufyan, the commander of the Quraysh, saw his men falling uncontrollably. According to the rules of warfare, he shouldn't have engaged in individual combat because he was the commander. His death could have caused panic in his army, but he couldn't control himself. He was riding a horse. He spurred it on and charged forward, shouting. His wife Hind saw him leaving and got on her camel and followed him. With a loud voice, she began to sing the same song, the verses of which also included, "But if you retreat, no, we won't follow near. For our love's not for cowards, it's only for the sincere." Abu Sufyan was on horseback, but the Muslim who came forward to confront him was on foot. History remembers him as Hanzila bin Abu Amer. When the Muslims came forward to fight the Quraysh in the battlefield, Abu Sufyan had a long spear in his hand. No one expected that the foot soldier with a sword would survive against the rider on the fast horse. Abu Sufyan's horse charged towards Hanzila. Abu Sufyan aimed his spear and thrust, but Hanzila veered off to one side. This happened 3 times. The third time, Abu Sufyan's horse stumbled and Hanzila caught up with him. Abu Sufyan couldn't see him. Hanzila attacked, causing Abu Sufyan to fall off his horse. As he fell, Abu Sufyan shielded himself by curling around his horse and called for help from the Quraysh. It was a tradition in Arab warfare that when 2 men were fighting, no one from either side would interfere until one of them was either killed or admitted defeat. Abu Sufyan, calling for help, was equivalent to admitting defeat according to the rules of warfare. So the Muslims mistakenly thought that this man would take Abu Sufyan with him, but he displayed treachery and attacked Hanzila from behind, killing him. Before this, even Muslims would break the rules of war by jumping into the battlefield, causing confusion. Abu Sufyan ran back to his troops. Muslims, if they wanted, could break the rules and start a big fight, but they stayed calm. Actually, according to the rules, big battles only started after 2 people duels or combats. This went on until no one was left to challenge each other. In every big battle, there was this interesting part where both sides showed off their preparations and strength right in front of each other. For the final confrontation, Abdul Rahman bin Abu Bakr came from the Quraysh side. Historian Waqidi described this event in such a way that Abdul Rahman bin Abu Bakr's challenge was met with a counter-challenge from his father, Hazrat Abu Bakr Siddiq, who had accepted Islam and became a companion of Muhammad. Drawing his sword, he went out to face his son. "Come forward, the unbelieving son of the believing father. I brought you into this world, and I'll ensure your exit before you approach the Prophet." Abu Bakr Siddiq shouted as he brandished his sword. Muhammad saw that father and son were about to engage in combat, so he ran and stopped Hazrat Abu Bakr Siddiq. "Put your sword back in its sheath, Abu Bakr," the Prophet said, and he led him away. A prominent early Muslim historian, Ibn Ishaq, narrated in his work Sirat Rasul Allah, the life of the Messenger of Allah, that after the Pact of Hudaybiyah, when Abdul Rahman ibn Abi Bakr became a Muslim, he told his father that on the day of Badr he had got a chance when he could have easily struck him, but then he had turned in another direction. Abu Bakr replied, "If I had such an opportunity, I would not have spared you." Though it might be exaggerated to say that Abu Bakr's absolute commitment to Islam at Uhud can be compared to Ibrahim's willingness to sacrifice his son Ismail. Just as Ibrahim obeyed God's command by being ready to sacrifice Ismail, Abu Bakr's dedication to Islam surpassed even his love for his own son. Khalid still echoed the clamor of war. He kept the scene within the safe confines of his eyes. He had his eyes fixed on a particular side where he intended to attack Muhammad. As individual confrontation of one-on-one fights ended, the Quraysh launched a fierce attack against the Muslims. Muhammad had positioned the Uhud mountain behind him, so the Muslims were not at risk of an attack from behind. Though the Muslims' casualties on the battlefield were minimal, yet the front was a bloody one. The Muslims were vastly outnumbered, but they made up for it with their bravery and swordsmanship. If the Quraysh had not had a numerical advantage, they would not have been able to stand against the Muslims. They were fighting with sheer force, but Khalid's gaze was fixed on the Prophet, peace be upon him. He was on one side, and it was this side that Khalid was ordered to attack. So he commanded his horsemen to gallop through the narrow passage and attack the Muslims from the side. However, Abdullah bin Jubair's 50 archers pushed them back so fiercely that they left their horses and wounded comrades behind and retreated. The battle was at its peak. Every man was fully focused on fighting, and no one could relax for a second. One small mistake could be fatal. Any slight lapse in attention could result in permanent death. But in the midst of this bloody battle, with its intense heat and clashing swords, galloping horses, and chaotic crowd where death lurked at every step, there was one strange black monster who was incredibly calm and fearless. He was neither fighting nor fearing anyone. He was wandering around the battlefield, holding a spear as if searching for someone. He was the wild warrior, Washi bin Harb. He was searching for Hamza. He was seeking two rewards for killing him: his freedom promised by his master and the jewelry of Hind, the wife of Abu Sufyan, which she had adorned herself with. Finally, he found Hamza. When Hamza came into his view, Washi's eyes lit up. Hamza was a formidable warrior. He was a towering figure, muscular and broad-chested, a brave Muslim fighter who struck fear into the hearts of his foes. No one dared stand against him for even a moment. As Washi spotted him in the crowd, a smile spread across his face, and he stepped forward. He was fixing his gaze on Hamza, slowly and steadily moving towards him like a crocodile approaching a deer drinking from the edge of a pond, carefully controlling its movements through the water's ripples, gradually closing in on its prey.